Hey guys, it's Mr. Dugal, and today we're going to talk about something that you already know how to do, but that you probably don't know that you know how to do, and that is to find what's called the IQR, or the inner quartile range. When we look at the inner quartile range, we can tell from the Q word quartile that we have a stem word in there that we know, and that is court. In court, we see in measuring, we see, quarts, but we also see in money, we see quarters. And basically, that stem revolves around there being four of something. There are 4 quarters in a dollar. There are 4 quarts in a gallon. 4. So basically we have different quartiles. We have the 0% quartile, 0% of our data, which is the minimum. That's the lowest number. It's not above any other numbers. That's why we call it 0%. In this case, 22 is our minimum. And there are no numbers that 22 is bigger than. So that's where the 0% comes from. We have our lower quartile. And our lower quartile represents the 25th percent of our data. And we'll get into that in a little bit. We also have our median, which is our 50%. The median is halfway in between the data. So if we go to find the data of the set above, we see 22 and 37 would cancel, 34, 24 cancel, 26, 31 cancel, and we're left with in between 26 and 28. So our median in this case would be 27. We have our upper quartile, which similarly to lower quartile, the upper quartile, what that 75% stands for is it means it's larger than 75% of the data set. In the same way, the lower quartile will be larger than 25% of the data set. So the lower quartile would be on the lower half of the numbers, the upper quartile on the upper half. And finally, and I think you could probably guess this, we have 100% or our maximum. And that what that means is that this number is bigger than all of our numbers. It's the biggest number we have. In this case, that's 37. And so those are the 4 quartiles that we have. We have quartile 1 is the lower quartile. Quartile 2 is the median. Quartile 3 is the upper quartile. And quartile 4 is our maximum. So right now we know that our maximum is 37, our minimum is 22, our median is 27, and what I told you earlier is you don't maybe know that you know how to do this, but you do know how to do it. We need to find our lower quartile and our upper quartile. And basically how we find these, we're going to find the median of the lower half and the median of the upper half. So in this case, we have 27 as our median. So I'm not going to include that. So when I look at the lower half, I have 22, 26 would cancel, and then I would find the median between 24 and 26. When I think about what number is in between 24 and 26, I realize that my lower quartile is 25. So there's our numbers so far. We have the minimum of 22, lower quartile of 25, the median of 27, and the maximum of 37. Using that same method, I want you to think through where should the upper quartile be in between? What 2 numbers should the upper quartile be in between? The median of the upper half. Okay, when I look at the numbers on the upper half, I see that 28 and 37 would cancel, and that my upper quartile must be in between 31 and 34. To find the average of those two numbers, I would add them up and divide by 2. 31 plus 34 is 65. Divided by 2 gives me 32 and a half. So that's what you call the upper quartile. The other important part of this, and we're going to just do a really basic one, I want you to know that usually these are plotted on a number line. Just for basic sake though, I'm going to show you how a box and whisker plot works. Basically, we're going to have a shape that looks like this with a median present. And there we go. So with this, we're going to have the maximum be at 37, the minimum be at 22, the lower quartile be at 25, the median be at 27. When I evaluate the median, I realize that 27 is closer to 25 than it is my upper quartile. My upper quartile is 32 and a half. So again, usually this is done on a number line, meaning it might say 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. But to give us the idea, that's a really basic box and whisker plot. So we put our minimum right here on the first whisker, is what they call that. Lower quartile at the beginning of the box. The median right in the middle of the box. The upper quartile, the upper end of the box. And the maximum as our last whisker. All of this is linear, and so it should kind of fall into place how you feel like it would. Meaning the lowest number comes first, then the next lowest number, the lower quartile, then the median, then the upper quartile, then the maximum. We're going to do one more example. I want you to notice that up above, I chose 8 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's an even number of numbers, and therefore my median was on the outside here, and my lower quartile fell in the middle of 2 numbers, and the upper quartile also fell in the middle of 2 numbers. Sometimes students get confused when there's an odd number of numbers of what to do with the median, so we're going to do one example with that, and that will help us moving forward. Alright, so I have a new list of numbers, and you'll notice on the bottom I do have a code here for what each term means. So I have min listed as the minimum, it's the lowest number in the data set. The LQ is the lower quartile, you'll see it written as LQ. You may even see it written as quartile 1 or Q1. That's the 25th percentile. Again, what that means is that number is ahead of 25% of the data, but still in the lower half. The median is the middle number, or the 50th percentile. We have the UQ, which is the upper quartile. It's the 75th percentile, which means it's ahead of 75% of the numbers, but still not ahead of all of the numbers quite yet. And then max is our maximum, which is the largest number, and it's ahead of 100% of the numbers. So our easiest two always tend to be our minimum and maximum. We can gather these just by looking at the data set. So our minimum here is, of course, 30, and our maximum is 43. As I go to evaluate my median, I'm going to go ahead and cancel 2 from the left, 2 from the right, 1 from the left, and 1 from the right. You'll notice that I just have one number left in the middle, and that number is 35. This is different than last time. Last time I had 2 numbers left in the middle, and this is because this time I have 7 numbers, which is an odd number of numbers, and that's an important distinction. So 35 is my median. It's halfway. That's why it's at the 50th percentile. There are 3 numbers less than 35, 30, 31, and 33, and there's 3 numbers more than 35, 38, 41, 43. That's why it is the 50th percentile. As I go to find my lower quartile, I want you to imagine this box around 35 as a wall. Sometimes students, when they go to find a lower quartile or an upper quartile, will include 35. I want you to watch this error that is made if you include 35. I would cancel 30 and 35, and then I'd be left with 31 and 33. That would make my lower quartile 32, and that is not correct. Because I have this wall set up around 35, I do not include it. As a matter of fact, I always recommend canceling the number with the wall out entirely after I'm done with it. So as I look back at my lower quartile now, the only three numbers I have are 30, 31, and 33. 30 and 33 cancel. I'm left with 31 as my lower quartile. Similarly, on the right-hand side, I only have 38, 41, and 43. 38 and 43 cancel. I'm left with 41 as my upper quartile. So 31 is my lower, 41 is my upper. You'll also notice that I do have a number line this time. As I go to plot this, my whisker is going to be at 30. It's a very short whisker because my box actually starts at 31. My median is at 35. And my upper quartile is at 41. So here's my box. And my last whisker, my final whisker, takes me to 43. It's a slightly larger whisker. And there is my box and whisker plot to go alongside with my quartiles.